One of the most popular neighborhoods, or communities, I should say, in the Portland metro area is Lake Oswego. With its luxury exclusive communities and homes, to its excellent award-winning schools, to its vibrant community, there is a lot to like about living in this area. But like any place, it has its cons as well. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing 4 pros and 4 cons that you should be aware of before making the decision to move to Lake Oswego, Oregon. And we're getting after it right now. If you're new to our channel, hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell, because we put out content every single week on Portland life. That's what we do our videos on. My team member Erica and I are committed to providing you a lot of good information that when you move here, you're going to have a better sense of where you're moving to and what's it all about. And you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is listed below. We would love the reach out. We always like to hop on a Zoom call, get on a phone call with you, and talk about helping you make that move to the Portland metro area. The first thing we're going to talk about in moving to Lake Oswego is a pro, and it's the community. It is a vibrant, abundant community, and that is not always easily found in a lot of neighborhoods and cities around the Portland metro area. It has things in the way of farmers market, community events. Lots of families move here because of what the community offers. We've talked about in other videos a little bit more in depth about Lake Oswego and how it has a lot in the way of arts. There's a theater downtown. There is just a lot of ways that you can get involved within the community of Lake Oswego. And for a lot of people, that matters to them. A strong community usually means that people are thriving in it, and Lake Oswego is no different. So as you get to know Lake Oswego, you're going to find that there is a big community of people that don't even move out of Lake Oswego. When they choose to move, they're moving within Lake Oswego to another neighborhood or another location. Lake Oswego is actually a fairly decent size based on the fact that the lake of Lake Oswego is kind of right in the center of the community. And so there's just a huge variety of locations that you can live in. You can live in kind of an urban setting, like in the downtown area. You can walk from First Edition to the downtown area and all the restaurants or whatnot. You can live in various different types of community, from new construction. Yes, we have some. It's usually a custom build because Lake Oswego just quite frankly doesn't have any more land. So what we have is what we got. So you'll find a lot of builders will scrap older homes or buy or partition lots off of existing homes and build a property. Now, usually those properties are $2.5 million or more because the land is so darn valuable. But as it is, there's a lot of different communities and neighborhoods around the Lake Oswego area. You can choose from what feels comfortable to you, but there is a huge variety of that. And then we have the second pro, which is the school system. As many people know, lots of really good locations around the country are based off of having really strong school systems. And Lake Oswego is no different. They're always rated in the top #1 spot of the strength of their schools. It has a fantastic sports and athletic departments that are very strong. And there's a very high ratio of people going off to colleges and even Ivy Leagues around the country. So it's just got one of the strongest school districts. In fact, a lot of people will transfer to Lake Oswego in lieu of paying for private school because they figure, well, if I have to, get to a private school and pay an upwards of $30,000 or $40,000 a year, I might as well move to Lake Oswego, pay a little bit more or a lot more for the house that they want, and be in what's almost considered like the public private schools because it's just so highly rated. So if you're looking for an area and a community that is very high rated, the highest we have in the Portland metro area, look no further than Lake Oswego. Now, because I just brought up 2 pros of living in Lake Oswego, I'm going to tell you about 2 cons. One of them you already probably know about, but the other one I thought we should talk about because I don't think people consider it. They bring it up sometimes when they start looking around, but the first one is the obvious one, which is cost of living. You are going to pay to live in Lake Oswego. $1 million does not get you a lot in Lake Oswego. In fact, the average sales price is hovering right around $1.5 million. If you're looking for a large home in an exclusive neighborhood or newer construction, you can easily pay an upwards of $2 to $2.5 million and higher. Now, to get on the lake, which is very, very exclusive, there's only so many lake properties available at any given time, you're gonna easily pay $3 million or more. Sometimes can find something in the twos, but on average, people are paying quite the premium to live on the lake. So just be aware of that when you look at Lake Oswego. Now, a lot of people say, I don't need a big house. I can have something that's minimal, and they try to keep their cost under $1 million. Can you find inventory in Lake Oswego under $1 million? Yes, you can. Usually we're focused on areas that the pricing is not quite as dramatic, like Mountain Park. You can find houses that are 3 or 4 bedrooms under $1 million, or the River Grove district, which offers kind of an older ranch or 2-story home. Some of them are even still on septic systems, but you can get a house in those particular areas under $1 million. Now, you can find a lot of very small homes in Lake Oswego. Maybe they need a lot of renovations, or they're what we call tired, under $1 million, but just be aware you're gonna compromise on condition or size under that $1 million mark. Most people who look in Lake Oswego have higher expectations if they're paying close to $1 million. So we tend to look at other communities and neighborhoods outside of Lake Oswego to kind of satisfy their needs. But if you're looking in Lake Oswego, be prepared to understand that the price per square foot in a lot of the neighborhoods is going to be much greater than its counterparts like Westland, Tualatin, Tigard, or other West Side communities. Okay, and we're gonna end with 2 cons. One of these cons is my own experience. I recommend everybody decide for themselves if this is a con for you, and that is the cell phone service. I don't know what's going on with Lake Oswego, but I have friends that live in Lake Oswego. My office is out of Lake Oswego, and the amount of areas where you get dropped on your cell phone or are dead zones drives me crazy. So when you go to look at, or if you're gonna look to buy in Lake Oswego, you need to test out your cell phone service, because literally I have friends that have to stand in their garages, not even in their house. They can't even make phone calls out of their house, only in their garages or a certain spot where they can make calls and receive calls. Otherwise, their cell phone service craps out on them. I don't know what that's all about. When I rented my space in downtown Lake Oswego, the first 6 months were brutal. They could not figure out why the cell phone service wasn't good inside the building. They later figured it out. I don't know what measures they had to take, but we all complained significantly. And they were like, this is just a weird dead zone of Lake Oswego. They got it figured out. But it's like, you know, and so a lot of times when I'm talking to friends or colleagues throughout the Lake Oswego area, every once in a while I have a phone conversation where I'm like, what is going on with the cell phone? Like, oh, I'm just in a really bad spot. So I don't know if that's considered a con for a lot of people in Lake Oswego. I'm sure people have figured it out, or depending on where you live, but there are dead zones. There are cell phone coverages that stink in Lake Oswego, and it drives me nuts because I'm like, come on, this is one of the most sophisticated locations in all of Portland, and y'all are having cell phone issues that I don't understand. So maybe it's not for everybody. If you live in Lake Oswego, drop a comment if you've experienced this, but I have definitely experienced this regularly with friends and colleagues. And, you know, I had an experience when I rented my office space in Lake Oswego for the first 6 months. So I can only say from my own experience and my colleagues, but come on, get with the program. Why are we having so many dead zones in Lake Oswego? All right, back to the pros of living in Lake Oswego. Here's my last 2 pros we're gonna bring up, because I told you I'd give you 4 pros and 4 cons. Well, number 1 is it's absolutely beautiful. When you go through Lake Oswego, that's one thing that you can appreciate is they've got this beautiful lake, Lake Oswego. You can see it from different vantage points. You can go downtown Lake Oswego and actually have lunch or walk around down near the lake, and it's gorgeous. Not many towns in our area have lakes or on water, so it makes it very exclusive in that respect. Currently, the Lake of Lake Oswego is exclusive to owners or people who have ownership rights to go down to use the swim and lake easements. There is a lawsuit happening right now that is, we don't know how it's going to end up, but there are people suing to try to make it a public lake. As of right now, though, it is a private lake, and so you need to have access to it based on where you live in Lake Oswego. But beyond that, as you drive around Lake Oswego, there's one thing I really appreciate about Lake Oswego is like when you go to the downtown area, there's a lot of artwork in the downtown area that is there as just a means to look aesthetic. And I always appreciate that because they've taken artists' work and they've permanently placed them in and around the downtown area. So as you're driving or walking around, you can appreciate that they've put beautiful artwork throughout the downtown Lake Oswego area. The downtown is actually really pretty. They have a lot of restaurants and they have coffee shops and, retail and things of that nature. So just walking around downtown, it's very pretty. The buildings are very well done. But just in driving throughout Lake Oswego, it's hilly. It's got a ton of, mature landscaping. There's tons of parks throughout Lake Oswego. It just has, and then Lusher Park, which is one of my favorite parks. We've done a video on it. They've got gardens, they've got, kids sports field, they've got walking trails. There just really is something unique about the outdoor feel in Lake Oswego that is kind of unmatched throughout the Portland metro area in a lot of ways. So just a lot of beautiful places to appreciate and walk around. And as I mentioned, the con is trees, but it's also part of what makes it so beautiful. So depending on where you live, of course, if you can appreciate walking around and seeing all the gorgeous trees, then maybe it's not a con for you, but it really is a beautiful place. And then the last pro that I wanted to bring up was location. And the location of Lake Oswego is really unique because you're really close to downtown Portland. You can just hop on Highway 43, get downtown fast. You're really close to the other side of the river because the Willamette River actually butts up against Lake Oswego. And so you can hop over to the east side rather quickly. You can get to West Lynn really quickly. And then it kind of butts up against Tigard and Tualatin. So you can run across the overpasses quickly to those areas. So it's kind of in this unique spot where you can get on the freeway from 217. You can go down Highway 43 to the 205. It just is kind of in this perfect center point of location in the Portland metro area. So when you look at a map, you can see why people like the location of it because it's just so close to everything. Now, here is a con that I think a lot of people don't talk enough about living in Lake Oswego, and that is the trees. Yes, trees. Now, we have a lot of trees in the Portland metro area. I actually really love trees. However, there are areas of Lake Oswego that are very densely populated with trees to the point that, in my opinion, it feels kind of dark. There's a lot of areas of Lake Oswego that feel very, very dark just because of the density of the trees. Now, if you love trees, you may not care. But a lot of people make the comment when they start looking at properties within Lake Oswego that, wow, it just feels really dark and really dense and really forested in some parts of Lake Oswego. And it is, quite frankly. And there are areas that have such density that it feels like they don't get a lot of sun in the area. So that's just something to be aware of. And the other thing about having that many trees in Lake Oswego is that we just had a severe storm about a year ago. And Lake Oswego was in a state of emergency because they had over 100 trees fall in the city, more than any other city or neighborhood in the entire metropolitan area. In fact, I took down some trees in my own personal yard. And when I was talking just this year, not during the storm, but when I was talking to the tree person, they said they were working around the clock 24/7. And the most amount of phone calls they were getting was coming from Lake Oswego. We had roads that were closed in Lake Oswego, main roads, because of the amount of trees that fell. We had houses that were hit by these trees. It looked like a war zone when you went through Lake Oswego after this storm. So if you're gonna live in Lake Oswego, in my opinion, you need to be aware of trees. How do you feel about them? If you like them, cool. And light. Some people that light on their property is really important to them. So if it's densely packed with trees, that's going to, not allow you to have a lot of light or even to have certain types of vegetation in your yard, because sometimes these trees drop stuff and it kind of suffocates your lawn. So you may not want to have grass because it tends to be very difficult to grow in areas where, the needles and all that stuff from the tree come down. So in my opinion, that's just something to be very, very aware of. And the city of Lake Oswego is very hard to get them to allow you to take trees down. So a lot of builders talk about it when they're trying to build a house. And honestly, in the last storm that we had, they really talked a lot about the community, how if they were able to take down some of these trees that were showing that they were maybe dying or not doing so well, we wouldn't have had so many trees falling on houses causing major, major issues. So just something to be aware of that I think is kind of a con for living in Lake Oswego. And the last con is that while the location of Lake Oswego is very central, which I brought up as a pro, it's got some drive time. So what I mean by that is if you live in Lake Oswego and you want to drive to the other side of Lake Oswego, it can actually take you 15 to 20 minutes because the lake is the centerpiece of Lake Oswego and you have to go all the way around the lake to get to the other side. And you got to go through stop signs and stoplights and maybe the downtown area or cross over through back end roads in the neighborhoods. But it can take you a little bit of time to get from one side to the other. The other thing is a lot of people will look in Lake Oswego and then they want to work and have a commute out in the tech sector, which is out towards the Beaverton, Hillsborough location. And it's kind of a commute because depending on where you live in Lake Oswego, you might have to drive around the lake, get to the other side, and then get to the freeway access, and then drive to your destination, which can maybe take you 45 minutes to an hour. So while it's in a central location to the Portland Metro, getting out to like the tech sector where a lot of clients tend to, need to work in, they find that commute can be kind of a nightmare. And so I've had people say, look, I bought in Lake Oswego, say in like the Merrillhurst neighborhood, and from their neighborhood all the way out to sector is like an hour, and sometimes an hour or more depending on traffic. So depending on your commute or how you live, you want to make sure that wherever you're commuting to from work or your lifestyle, that you understand there is a bit of a drive time getting in and around Lake Oswego and then out to maybe where you're working. Now, if you are working downtown, you can shoot on Highway 43 pretty easily. That does get some congestion, so just beware during traffic hours. That can be a lot of sitting at lights, and it can take you a lot more time to get to downtown and back. But if you're commuting further out, you really want to drive that during regular traffic hours because it can be something. So even though it's central and I gave it a pro for that, it can also be a con if your aspiration is to live in Lake Oswego and you're quite a bit of ways out. Even though on the map or on paper it doesn't look that far, get in the car and drive those commute times when there's heavier traffic, and make sure you understand what that might look like. Thanks for joining me today as we discuss the pros and the cons. Now, I didn't give them all the pros. There might be more cons. If you have comments, drop them below. We know how vocal you guys can get. We always like to hear your feedback. And if you are thinking about making a move to Lake Oswego or any other area in the Portland Metro, reach out. We have all of our contact information below. We love getting the reach outs and having you be a part of our community. And we will see you guys on the next video.